I'm pretty sure that with your website you're wondering, what on earth do I write about? You've got stuff that you could write about, but you don't really know what's going to interest people who might come and visit your website. So what kind of things could you put on there that are going to make it really interesting for people to read and to stick on your site? Well, I think what we could do is take some tips from newspapers and magazines and look at the way they work and find out what is it that they do that makes us want to read their material. Well, the first thing they do is provide us with stuff that's really relevant. Let's imagine that you live in Reading, and in Reading there might be a story about waiting lists for care in the hospital, and that would all be about the Reading Hospital. If you lived in Swindon, you wouldn't care about the waiting lists in Reading Hospital. What you'd worry about are the waiting lists in Swindon. So the Swindon Advertiser may cover the same topic, but they would make it relevant to people in Swindon by focusing on what's going on in the Swindon hospitals rather than the Reading ones. So what you need to do with your website is make it relevant to your target audience. Exactly who's going to be reading your website and what kind of angles, what kind of things are they interested in your particular topic. Make it really relevant to them and they will continue to read your material. The other thing that newspapers do that we sometimes don't really notice is that what they write about is unusual. It's not normal everyday stuff. So for example, car manufacturer makes cars is not really that unusual. They're doing it every day. Millions of cars are made every year. We don't really care that they make them, they just do. It's not unusual. Car manufacturer makes cars and botches the manufacture, resulting in 8 million being recalled. That's so unusual it makes the headlines. So the things that make us stand up and notice are things that are unusual, not normal everyday stuff. If your website is normal everyday stuff on your topic, people aren't going to be interested. It's got to be unusual for them. The other thing that you often find in newspaper stories in particular is that there's an element of trouble, that the stories have some kind of conflict, there's some negativity, there's two people pitched against each other, one side of the argument, then the other side of the argument. And so if your website does that as well, by putting two sides of an argument, rather than just putting something plain, be a bit controversial, then the chances are you're going to get many more readers as well, and people to stick with you. And one other thing that newspapers do is that they make it topical. Everything they write about is of the moment. It's not stuff that happened last year, and if it is stuff that happened last year, they give us the update on it. We don't want to know what happened last year, we want to know the latest information about it. So if something is in the news, it's because it is new. And that's what people like reading about. They don't like reading about stuff they already know, they want to read fresh stuff. So make your website fresh, put new material on, and cover, even if it's old subjects, cover them with a new twist. So make it topical. Link it to particular dates. So if something is happening in the calendar, it's a bank holiday, tie your story that you're writing on your website into the bank holiday. Make a connection, make it topical. There is one other thing though that the newspapers do that your website could learn from. If you look at newspapers and magazines and read the first few words of each story, you'll find that within that first phrase, within the first sentence certainly, there will be somebody's name or a kind of person they're talking about. In other words, they're full of human interest. You need to make your website full of human interest, because that will really get people connected with what you're writing about. So human interest makes the connection. And if you're writing about things, then tell us what the human angle is. How do people benefit from those things? Which people made those things? Which people designed those things? Which people use those things? So don't write about the things, write about the people, because that's what gets us to read newspapers, magazines, and if you watch the television news tonight or listen to the radio news, everything will be focused upon human interest. So There are just 5 things you need to do on your website to guarantee that people want to carry on reading what it is that you have to offer. You have to make it topical to people. You have to make it relevant to people. You have to make it unusual, not normal stuff. You've got to have an element of trouble or conflict, and you've got to have human interest. Tell people the truth. It's quite straightforward.